It was a normal morning in the small town of Roseville. The streets were quiet, and the smell of fresh bread came from the corner bakery. In a little house near the school, a 14-year-old girl named Emma sat at an old upright piano. Her fingers moved softly across the keys, playing a beautiful melody. Her eyes were closed, but not because she was lost in the music. Emma had been blind since birth. She had never seen the piano she played, never looked at a music sheet, and never seen her own reflection. But her ears were sharp, and her heart understood music like it was her first language. Emma's parents were simple people. Her father was a mechanic, and her mother worked part-time at a local store. Didn't have much money, but they saved enough to buy that second-hand piano after noticing Emma's love for music. She used to sit for hours near the radio, listening to classical music and trying to imitate the sounds on a toy keyboard. At first, her parents thought it was just a hobby, but over time they realized Emma had something specialer, natural talent that didn't need sight to shine. Emma never went to a fancy music school. She didn't have a personal teacher or expensive lessons. Her main guide was an old cassette tape of piano basics, which she listened to over and over. She learned to recognize every key by touch, every chord by sound. She could hear a song once and repeat it, not perfectly at first, but better than most students who had full sight and years of training. Despite this, Emma was shy. At school, she didn't speak much. Some kids teased her. They would wave their hands in front of her, face or hide her things, laughing when she couldn't find them. But Emma never got angry. She just smiled and returned to her music. That was her safe place. Her escape one day, the school announced something exciting. A world-famous pianist, Victor Hale, was coming to hold a special workshop. He would perform, give advice, and even let students try the grand piano on stage. Victor was known around the world not just for his skills, but also for his attitude. He was very strict and believed in perfection if someone made a mistake. During a performance, he would stop them instantly and point it out, sometimes even in a rude way. People still admired him. He had won many awards and performed in the best concert halls. For a small school in a quiet town, having Victor Hale visit was a big deal. The auditorium was packed on the day of the workshop. Students, teachers, and even some parents filled the seats. The curtains opened, and there stood Victor tall. Dressed in a black suit, his hair neatly combed. He went straight to the piano and played a piece so fast and powerful that the audience was left speechless. His fingers moved like magic. Every note was perfect. When he finished, people clapped loudly. Then came the workshop part. Victor invited students to come up, one by one, and play something. A few brave ones walked up and performed short pieces, gave them advice, corrected their mistakes, and praised only a little. Most students were nervous. Some even stopped halfway through because of the pressure. Emma was sitting in the front row with her white cane beside her. She listened carefully to everything. She loved the sound of Victor's playing, but something about his tone when he spoke to others made her uncomfortable. Still, she wanted to try. Her fingers were itching to touch the keys. She believed she could do it. When Victor asked, "Anyone else wants to try?" there was a long pause. Then slowly, Emma raised her hand. The room froze. Some students whispered. A few snickered. They knew Emma was blind. Some didn't believe she could even play properly. A teacher gently stood up and said, "This is Emma. She's very talented. You should hear her play." Victor looked surprised, raised an eyebrow and said, "She plays." "How exactly?" "She plays by ear," the teacher said. Victor folded his arms. "Interesting," he said, in a voice that didn't sound kind. "Music is not a guessing game. It's a language that must be studied." Emma stood up. She felt the stairs. She held her cane in one hand and was guided to the stage. Every step felt like a mountain. She didn't show it, but inside her heart was beating fast. She had played in her living room many times, but never in front of a crowd especially. Not someone like Victor Hale. When she reached the piano, she slowly sat down and placed her cane beside the bench. Her hands found the keys. She gently ran her fingers across them to feel her place. The room was silent. Victor spoke again. "Do you know how to read music?" Emma shook her head softly. "No, sir." "Then what will you play?" Emma smiled. Rachmaninoff? That got everyone's attention. Even Victor blinked in surprise. Rachmaninoff's music was known for being very difficult even for professional pianists. The piece she mentioned, Piano Concerto No. 2, was emotional, powerful, and technically advanced. Victor narrowed his eyes. Go ahead then. Emma took a deep breath. She didn't think about the people watching. She didn't think about Victor. She just thought about the music, how it felt in her soul. Then she began. The first note was soft, gentle, like a drop of rain. Then came the second, then the third. Slowly, the room started to change. The whispers stopped. The giggles disappeared. Emma's hands moved faster, smoother, more confident. The melody filled the auditorium. It was not just correct, it was alive. Every note had emotion. Every chord carried power. The pain, the joy, the longing, and the peaceful of it was present in her performance. Victor leaned forward, his arms uncrossing, his eyes focused on Emma's fingers. She wasn't playing like a student. She wasn't even playing like a professional. She was playing like someone who felt every sound deep in her bones. She wasn't reading music. She was speaking it. People in the audience stared in disbelief. A few had their mouths open. Some teachers wiped tears from their eyes. Even the students who laughed before were now stunned, completely silent. When the last note came, Emma held it for a second, then gently lifted her hands from the keys. Silence. Then suddenly, loud applause. The room erupted. People stood up. Teachers clapped. Parents clapped. Even the students who didn't like her clapped. Emma stayed seated, unsure what was happening. She couldn't see the crowd, but she could hear the love. Victor didn't clap at first. He slowly walked toward her. Then he said something that no one expected. I was wrong. Emma turned her head. You don't need eyes to see music, he said. You've reminded me what music is supposed to be. Emma smiled quietly. Didn't say anything. She didn't need to. From that day on, everything changed. The girl who had been doubted, laughed at, and ignored, she had proved herself not with words, but with her gift. The music she played wasn't just her dit, was felt. And in just a few minutes, she had changed not just the room, but the hearts inside it. That day, Emma didn't just play music, she became it. The moment Emma played the last note on the grand piano, a strange quietness filled the school auditorium. It was not the kind of silence that came from confusion or boredom. It was the silence that comes right after something so beautiful that words feel too small to describe it. For a few seconds, nobody moved. Then, like a wave crashing into the shore, the applause started. At first it was soft, then louder, then everyone stood up on their feet, clapping, cheering. Some even wiping their eyes, but Emma couldn't see any of it. She only heard the sounds, the clapping, the whistles, the cheers, and the warmth in them felt like sunlight on her skin. She smiled quietly, still sitting on the bench, her fingers resting gently on the piano keys, as if they didn't want to let go just yet. That piano had been her world for so long. And now that world had opened a new door for her, one filled with people who had finally heard what she always knew. Deep inside, that music doesn't need eyes, it needs heart. Mr. Victor Hale stood near her, silent. The same man who had mocked her moments earlier now seemed frozen. He was watching Emma with an expression nobody had ever seen on his face before. Not arrogance, not pride, but something closer to awe. Slowly he stepped forward and spoke into the microphone. I was wrong, he said. The room fell silent again. He looked at Emma. This young girl has just reminded me, and all of us, why we fell in love with music in the first place. Technique is important, yes. Practice is necessary. But soul is everything. And Emma, she didn't just play a song. She gave us a piece of her soul. The entire auditorium burst into claps again. Emma's cheeks turned red. She was not used to attention like this. All she ever wanted was to play music and feel close to something beautiful. She never thought it would lead to this. After the event ended, people came to her. Teachers, students, even parents. Some wanted to shake her hand. Others just wanted to say thank you. A few girls from her class who never spoke to her before said, "That was amazing, and you are so talented." Emma just smiled and thanked them. Her mother came rushing to the front with tears in her eyes. She hugged Emma tightly and whispered, "You made the whole world listen to you today." Later that evening, as Emma returned home, she sat quietly. In the living room, her father made her favorite tea, and her mother sat beside her on the couch. For a while, nobody said anything. The house was peaceful, and her mother said, "Do you know what's happening online right now?" Emma looked confused. Online, her mother chuckled. "One of the students filmed your performance. It's on social media. It already has thousands of views." Emma's heart skipped a beat. "People are watching me?" as her father added, "and they love you." Emma didn't know what to say. She had always thought of herself as someone in the background, quiet, different, mostly invisible to the world. And now suddenly, the world was looking straight at her, not with pity, but with admiration. The next morning, things got even more surprising. A news reporter from the local channel came to her school, asking for an interview. They had seen the video online and wanted to share her story. Emma had never done an interview before. She felt nervous, but agreed. During the interview, the reporter asked her, "Emma, how do you play such difficult music without being able to see the keys?" Smiled gently. "I listen. I feel. The notes are like colors to me. I can't see them, but I know they're there, and I let my fingers follow them." The reporter was speechless for a moment. "That's incredible," she finally said. "You've become an inspiration to so many." The interview aired that night, and the next morning, everything changed. Again, more messages came. People from different cities, different countries even, were sharing her video. Famous musicians reposted her clip with captions like "Unreal talent," and "She doesn't need sight to see music better than any of us." One particular message stood out. It was an email from a national talk show inviting Emma to perform live on TV. Her parents were shocked. They had never imagined this could happen. At first they hesitated. Big cities, bright lights, crowded studios. It was all so overwhelming. But Emma said quietly, "I want to go. If it means more people like me can believe in themselves, then I want to go." Preparations began. A music teacher from the town offered to help Emma practice more challenging pieces. Even Victor Hale sent a message of encouragement. "The world is watching now," he wrote, "and I know you'll show them something unforgettable." When the day of the show arrived, Emma wore a simple blue dress her mother had sewn by hand. She didn't want to look like someone else. She just wanted to be herself. She waited. Backstage, she could hear the voices of the audience, the laughter, the music, the noise of cameras, but none of it scared her. She sat quietly, hands folded, breathing slowly. The host came to greet her. "Emma, we are so happy to have you. Are you ready?" She nodded. "I was born ready," she said with a small smile, as she walked onto the stage with the help of a staff member. The audience stood and clapped. Piano stood in the center, shining under the lights. Emma sat down, took a deep breath, and placed her fingers on the keys. This time, she didn't play Rachmaninoff. She played something more personal, a song she had created herself, one she used to hum in her room when she felt sad. It started soft, almost like a lullaby. Then it grew stronger, like a storm slowly rising. The melody told a story of fear, of loneliness, of being laughed at, but also of hope, courage, and victory. When she finished, the silence returned, but this time it wasn't because people were surprised. It was because they were moved, deeply, emotionally. Some had tears in their eyes. Others just closed their eyes and breathed deeply, letting the last note stay with them. The host returned to the stage, trying to speak through the emotion in his voice. "Emma, you've just done something that very few people ever do. You've touched millions of hearts." That night, the internet exploded again. News channels, websites, magazines, all talked about the blind girl who played from her sole offers came from music schools, charity organizations, and even record companies. But Emma remained calm. She only accepted the invitations that felt right to her, ones where she could perform, speak to children, or help other blind kids learn music. What mattered most to her was not the fame, was the chance to be heard. To show the world that blindness wasn't a weakness, that her music was not a miracle, it was the result of love, practice, and a heart that never gave up. And back in Roseville, her school changed too. A new music club was started for students with disabilities. Emma was made the honorary founder. Some of the same students who once teased her now looked up to her. One of them even said, "I used to think you were just the quiet girl with the cane, but now I see you were always something more." Emma laughed and replied, "Maybe I was always loud, just in a different way." And so, the girl who was once mocked, doubted, and overlooked became someone unforgettable, not just because of her talent, but because she chose kindness over anger, music over silence, and courage over fear. After the talk show performance, Emma's life changed faster than she ever imagined. She was no longer just the blind girl in a small town. She had become a symbol of talent, courage, and hope. Her piano performance had touched millions of hearts around the world, and now people wanted to know more about her. They didn't care about her disability. They only saw her gift. Back home, Emma tried to return to her normal routine. She still practiced piano every morning. She still helped her mother fold clothes and helped her little brother with homework. But everything around her had changed. Her small town, which once ignored her, now treated her like a local hero. Same students who used to whisper behind her back now said hello with a smile. Some even asked if she could teach them a few notes on the piano. Emma was surprised but happy. She didn't hold any anger. Her heart was too full of music for that. Meanwhile, the video of her playing Rachmaninoff in the school auditorium kept spreading. It crossed borders, languages, and cultures. Comments flooded in from all over the world. A woman from Japan said she cried when she heard Emma play. A man from Brazil said he shared her video with his daughter, who had been feeling hopeless. A soldier in a hospital bed wrote that her music gave him peace. Emma didn't even have a social media account. Her mother had to help her go through the emails and messages. Some of the letters came through the school. One had a golden seal on it. It was from the National Music Academy. They offered her a full scholarship to attend music workshops and learn from top-level teachers. Emma was excited but also nervous. "I'm not like them," she told her. "Mother, I don't read music. I can't see the notes." Her mother held her hand. "You don't have to be like them, Emma. You have something they don't. You play from your heart. It's more powerful than anything written on paper." Emma agreed to attend the workshops. They were held in the city, and it was her first time away from home. The big buildings, loud streets, and crowded halls overwhelmed her at first. But the moment her fingers touched a piano, she felt calm again. Music was her home. At the workshop, there were many talented students. Some who had been playing since they were toddlers. Some had personal tutors, expensive instruments, and years of classical training. A few of them were polite to Emma, but others gave her strange looks. They didn't understand how someone who couldn't read sheet music or see the keys could be invited to such a prestigious place. One girl named Clara was especially cold toward her. Clara was known as a top student. Her parents were both musicians, and she had already won national competitions. She asked Emma in a sarcastic tone, "So, what do you do when you get lost during a performance?" Guess Emma simply replied, "I listen." Clara laughed. "God. Well, good luck guessing in front of the judges." Emma didn't say anything more. She didn't need to. She wasn't there to argue. She was there to play. Over the next few days, the students practiced for the closing performance, where all the parents, teachers, and judges would come to hear them play. It was a big event, and everyone was nervous. Emma chose a challenging piece, Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. She had practiced it in secret for weeks, learning every note by listening, remembering, and feeling the piano. On the day of the performance, the hall was packed. Famous musicians, professors, and critics sat in the audience. Emma waited backstage with the other students. Clara passed by and said, "Don't be too upset if people start clapping before you're done. They might not know what you're trying." To play, Emma stayed calm. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. "You don't play for applause. You play to tell a story." When her name was called, Emma walked slowly to the piano. The stage was huge, and the lights were bright. But she focused only on the sound of her steps, the weight of her cane, and the smooth keys under her fingers. The hall went silent. Then she began. The first note was soft, like a whisper in the dark. The next one followed like a tear falling. Moonlight Sonata was not just a song for her, it was a journey. She played the sadness, the quiet anger, the longing hidden inside the music. Her hands moved gently but surely. Every note was placed with care. She didn't rush, she let the music breathe. The audience sat completely still. Even Clara backstage stopped whispering. Some leaned forward in their chairs, some closed their eyes. There were no distractions, no background noises, just the piano and the soul behind it. When the final note faded, there was a few seconds of quiet. Then the applause exploded. Loud, long, honest. People stood up, some even cried. Emma stood up slowly, bowed slightly, and walked back with her cane. She didn't see the clapping, but she felt it in her heart. After the show, a judge approached her. It was an old man with gray hair and kind eyes. "I've been listening to piano performances for 50 years, he said, but what you played tonight, that was not just music, that was truth." Clara didn't say anything that day. She simply looked at Emma with a different kind of expression, not mockery, but quiet respect. Emma's story continued to grow. That same week, a famous classical music website shared an article titled, "The Blind Pianist Who Sees More Than We Ever Could." It included her video, her story, and quotes from her interviews. It reached millions more. Schools started inviting her to speak. Blind children and their parents wrote letters asking how they could learn music too. Emma tried to reply to as many as she could. She realized something important. Her talent was not just for her, it was meant to be shared. It had the power to lift others, to inspire, to bring light into dark places. One day, her principal called her and said, "Emma, someone special is coming to see you." It was Victor Hale, the same man who once mocked her in front of the whole school now came to her home with flowers and a letter. He apologized again, this time in private. "You've taught me something I forgot, Emma, that true music comes from inside, not just from training." He invited her to join an international piano tour as a guest performer. Emma accepted not because she wanted fame, but because she wanted to prove to every child, every person who had ever been told you can't, that they could. Emma's first concert with the tour was in a huge concert hall in London. Thousands of people sat in the audience. The stage was large, the grand piano polished and glowing under the lights. She sat down, took a breath, and started to play. This time, it was not Beethoven or Rachmaninoff. It was her own piece, a melody she had created. One filled with silence and strength, with memories of pain and moments of joy. She called it the Light I Hear. She played. The world listened, not to a blind girl, but to an artist, to a voice that needed no words, no sight, only feeling. And in that moment, Emma realized something simple but powerful. She had once been mocked, but now she was unforgettable. A year had passed since Emma's name first reached the world. From a small-town blind girl to an international performer, her journey had touched millions. But Emma hadn't changed much inside. She was still humble, still quiet, still the same. Girl who sat for hours with her hands on the piano, letting the music speak what words never could. Fame didn't change her, it just made her more determined. She had played in concerts across cities and countries. People from all walks of life came to hear her, some out of curiosity, others because her music gave them hope. Each performance was a new story. But inside her heart, there was still one place she hadn't returned to: the school auditorium. The place where it had all begun, where Victor Hale had once mocked her in front of everyone. Emma hadn't forgotten. That moment, not because it hurt, but because it had changed everything. It had lit something inside her. Now, a strange announcement brought that memory back to life. The International Youth Piano Competition was returning, and it would be held in her home country. This was not a small event. It was one of the most respected competitions in the MEND world for young pianists. Students trained for years just to qualify. The winner would receive a grand trophy, a scholarship, and a performance contract. But the surprise was in the list of judges. Victor Hale would be one of them. Emma sat silently in her room after hearing the news. Her mother asked softly, "Are you thinking of joining?" Emma didn't answer right away. She touched the piano and played a few soft notes. "Yes," she said finally. "I need to go back, not for revenge, for myself." So she signed up. The competition had 3 rounds. Only the best made it to the final, which would be performed live in front of the judges and a large audience. As the date came closer, Emma practiced more than ever. She didn't just want to play perfectly, she wanted to play honestly. She had decided not to choose any famous classical piece for the final round. Instead, she would perform something original, a piece she'd been working on for months. Called it Unseen Light. It was not just music, it was her journey. Every note was a memory. Every pause was something she once feared. It was the story of a girl who was ignored, doubted, and finally heard. The day of the competition arrived. The hall was massive, filled with lights, cameras, and people from all over the world. Emma wore a simple white dress. She didn't wear makeup, didn't do anything special with her hair, wanted nothing to distract from the music backstage. She heard names being called. Pianists from Japan, Germany, Canada, and many other countries performed before her. Some were flawless, some played with fire and energy, others had sharp technique. Emma listened quietly to each one. She respected them. They had worked hard to reach this stage. Then came her turn. The announcer spoke.
Ow.
The crowd clapped. Emma stood up slowly, took her cane, and walked to the stage. Her steps were calm, steady. People in the audience whispered as she appeared, "That's her, the blind girl. I saw her video last year." Emma reached the piano, found her seat, and sat down. She rested her hands gently on the keys. The lights were bright, but she couldn't see them. She only heard the silence, the quiet breath of the crowd waiting. And then she began. The first notes of Unseen Light were soft, almost like a child's lullaby. They carried the sound of innocence, of a time before pain. Then, slowly, the melody changed. It grew deeper, stronger, like a voice finally learning how to speak. The middle part of the song was filled with tension. Her fingers moved faster, the chords heavier. It was the memory of struggle, of standing on a stage and being doubted. It was the pain of being mocked for something she couldn't control. But then came the turning point. The music shifted. It became warm, almost glowing. The notes began to rise, like someone climbing out of darkness into the sunlight. This was the part where Emma found her voice, where she chose to play, not to prove anything, but because she loved it. The final part of the piece felt like a hug, a message of comfort, of light, of hope. Every person in that hall was still. Some had closed their eyes, some held hands. Some just watched in silence, feeling something they couldn't explain. When the final note faded, Emma kept her hands on the piano for a moment. Then she slowly stood up and bowed. The room exploded in applause. People jumped to their feet. The judges were clapping too, even those known for being cold and hard to impress. Victor Hale stood up. He clapped without stopping. His face was serious, but his eyes looked soft. For a long time, he just kept clapping. Backstage, as Emma returned, other contestants smiled at her. Some hugged her. One girl said, "You didn't just play music. You changed the air in that room." After a short break, the judges returned to the stage. The head judge, a calm woman from Italy, took the microphone and said, "Today we saw many talented players. But one performance reminded us why music exists. Not for awards, not for fame, but to connect our hearts." She looked at Emma. The winner of the 2025 International Youth Piano Competition is Emma Carter. The crowd roared. Emma stood. Frozen, someone guided her gently to the stage. The golden trophy was placed in her hands. She couldn't see it, but she could feel its weight. Tears filled her eyes. Then Victor Hale stepped forward. He handed her a white envelope. "This is "A personal invitation," he said, "to perform at the Royal Symphony Gala in Vienna next winter as my guest." Emma smiled gently. "Thank you," she whispered. Then he leaned closer and said quietly, "I once mocked you. Today, I thank you. Reminded me what real greatness sounds like." The cameras clicked, lights flashed, and the whole world saw. The moment the girl once mocked by a famous pianist stood beside him as an equal. That night, Emma didn't go to any party. She returned to her room, sat at her small travel keyboard, and played the soft opening of Unseen Light again. Her fingers danced slowly. Her heart was full. She knew her journey wasn't over. It was only the beginning, because now people had not just heard her, they had felt her. And once someone feels your truth through music, they never forget you. The night after winning the International Youth Piano Competition, Emma sat quietly in her hotel room. The golden trophy rested on a small table next to her, shining under the warm lamplight. Though she couldn't see it, she gently ran her fingers along its smooth surface, feeling every curve and edge. To anyone else, it was just a trophy. But to Emma, it was something more. It was the proof that her music had not only been heard, it had been understood. But even in that quiet room, Emma didn't feel like the end had come. She didn't feel like the story was finished. Deep in her heart, she knew she hadn't reached the final note of her journey. In fact, something inside her whispered that her real mission was only beginning. After the competition, Emma's name appeared everywhere: news channels, newspapers, websites, magazines. Videos of her performance went viral once again. People around the world shared messages, calling her the voice of the soul, the girl who sees with sound, and even the light in the darkness. She received messages from musicians, celebrities, and teachers. But the most touching letters were from children, especially those who were blind, disabled, or struggling with self-doubt. They wrote things like, "I thought I couldn't follow my dream, but now I want to try. I used to cry because I was different. But when I hear your music, I feel strong." Emma read each letter with the help of her mother. Some made her cry, others made her smile. And one day, as she sat holding a letter from a 9-year-old blind girl named Sarah, who wrote, "I want to play like you someday," Emma made a decision. She would do more than perform. She would help with the support of her parents. Emma created a small foundation called Heart Sounds. The goal was simple: to provide music education, instruments, and emotional support to children with disabilities. She began holding workshops, visiting schools, and offering free lessons to blind children who wanted to learn piano. Emma wasn't a trained teacher, but she had something more important. She understood the struggle. She understood what it felt like to be left out, to be mocked, to feel invisible. That made her the perfect guide. In her first workshop, a boy named Adam came with his mother. He was blind, shy, and afraid to touch the keys. He whispered to Emma, "What if I make a mistake?" Emma knelt beside him and said, "Music is not about perfection. It's about feeling. Let your fingers speak your heart." Adam began to play slowly, and soon he smiled. His mother cried quietly in the back of the room. As months passed, Emma's foundation grew. Donations came in. Volunteers joined. Music. Schools offered space. More blind and disabled children came forward, eager to learn. Emma performed at charity events where all money went into Heart Sounds. Meanwhile, Victor Hale kept his promise. He invited Emma to Vienna to perform at the Royal Symphony Gala. It was the biggest stage of her life, a hall filled with legends, critics, and some of the most respected names in classical music. Emma arrived in Vienna with her parents, her keyboard teacher, and a simple goal: to share her story with music once again. Backstage, Victor met her in a black tuxedo. He smiled warmly and said, "You ready to shake the world again?" Emma laughed. "I don't need to shake the world. I just want to touch hearts." She walked onto the stage with confidence. The audience, dressed in suits and gowns, clapped politely. They had seen hundreds of pianists before, and he wondered what made Emma so special. Few even whispered, "Isn't she the blind girl from that video?" Emma sat at the massive grand piano. The hall was quiet. She rested her fingers on the keys, and then she began. She played a new composition one she hadn't performed anywhere before. It was called The Echo of Silence. It started with soft, slow notes, almost like the quiet after a storm. Then it rose gently, with warm harmonies, followed by moments of tension. She played as if she was telling the story of every child who had ever been ignored, every tear that fell unseen, every dream that was laughed at. The room was silent. Every note seemed to float into the hearts of the audience, planting seeds. Of emotion, people stopped blinking. Some held hands. Others had tears sliding down their cheeks. When Emma finished, she placed her hands on her lap and bowed her head slightly. And in that stillness, a single clap echoed. Then another. Then the hall exploded into applause. People stood up. Victor stood up. The musicians behind her stood up. Vienna, the home of Mozart and Beethoven, was on its feet for a blind girl from Roseville. Emma bowed. But in her heart, she was thinking of Adam, of Sarah, of every child she had ever helped. After the show, Victor hugged her. "You've gone far beyond what I thought music could do," he said. "You're not just a pianist, Emma. You're a movement." Back home, her foundation became global. Branches opened in other countries. Music teachers began learning special ways to teach blind students. Schools installed Braille music sheets. Music was becoming more inclusive, and Emma's name was always at the center. She was invited to speak at events, give interviews, and even write a book. But she never let it change her. She still walked with her cane, still practiced on her same old piano, still believed that kindness mattered more than fame. Years later, she was invited back to the same school where it all began, the same auditorium, same stage where she had once been mocked. This time, she was invited as an honored guest. The school had changed. They now had music programs for disabled students. Her photo hung in the hallway. The piano had a new plaque that read, "The Keys That Lit the World, Emma Carter." When she stepped on stage again, students cheered. Teachers smiled. The principal, now older, said, "Emma, you've become the pride of our town." Emma took the microphone and said softly, "I was once laughed at on this very stage. But it was here I learned the most important lesson, that music doesn't belong to the perfect. It belongs to the brave." She played one final song that day. It was gentle. It was full of memory. And it ended with a silence that said more than any sound ever could. Because sometimes the loudest things in the world are the things you feel, but cannot see. Emma Carter had once been mocked by a famous pianist, but she didn't fight back. With anger, she fought back with music, and in doing so, she shook the world note by note, heart by heart.